welcome to the series on digital marketing. In today's session, we would learn about digital channel mix. For the benefit of the students who have probably joined the series with today's session, let me take you through what we discussed in the previous session. We have been discussing about digital strategy assessment phase, where we discussed digital strategy definition, and we also discussed that there is no one particular strategy that fits any organization. As such, there is no one definition that can be adopted for the digital strategy by firms in general. We also discussed that there is a customer development strategy that is very much a part of the strategy assessment phase, in which a firm has to look into its segmentation, targeting and positioning strategies for 2.0. Digital marketing mix with additional 4 P's, that is people, process, programs and performance, is also that we had a look at. Digital marketing implementation was the last stage in the phase, where we discussed that for effective implementation of digital marketing programs, one has to ensure that the framework is implemented and the strategy that has been developed so far is implemented properly. This was, students, in continuation to the larger digital marketing ASCOR framework that we have been discussing, and in that regard the strategy assessment phase was the second phase. In today's session, we are opening the third stage of the ASCOR framework, which is digital channel mix. In today's session, we would look at the following key points. We would have an understanding of the ways in which the traditional media planning is different from digital marketing planning. We would also see what are the key concepts that one can use in a media plan, in a digital media plan. We would also look into various stages of digital marketing planning, what are the various success criteria, and how one can evaluate the performance of its marketing plan. And lastly, we would look at some of the key digital marketing channels that have been used by firms in the recent times, and these are the channels which are also gaining prominence. Let us first look at how the traditional media planning is different from the media planning which a digital marketer is supposed to be doing. So, the media planning shift, students, have to be understood broadly in terms of the shift which has taken place on 5 major elements. That is, how the media channel has changed, how the media vehicle has changed, the way we are dealing with the audience that is different, the way media is to be scheduled in terms of the time, in terms of duration, in terms of the continuity of its use, media budgeting, and lastly the delivery. Now, when it comes to media channel, students, this is the medium or the platform through which brands communicate with their external target audiences. The traditional media used to have channels such as broadcast, radio, TV, newspaper, magazines, different ways of outdoor. But when we are talking about digital channels, we are going to include channels such as a company's website, social media sites, maybe blogs, various kind of apps, and so on and so forth. The second major shift has happened in terms of the vehicle. Now, what is a vehicle? In terms of media or channel, this is a specific carrier the specific method that would be used by the company to deliver its communication message. Now, in case of digital medium, it could include ads that you place in the news stream of a Facebook user, or ads that you insert within Twitter stream for a popular hashtag by a popular brand. So, within a broad media channel that we had just now discussed, which particular specific carrier would be carrying that message across to its target audience. Now, here let us understand the third vital component of the shift, which is the audience. Now, the target audience which consumes a particular communication message that is placed into a channel is what is of interest to any digital marketer. I am not trying to connect with everybody who is exposed to my message, but I am having a more focused strategy on the digital platforms and on digital channels, and I am trying to communicate with a particular target group. For example, in case of TV, it could be a specific audience who is watching a specific program in which the advertisement is placed. But when we talk about in case of online media, what are we looking at? It could be just the audience which is watching a particular ad placed for him, or even he or she can view it on a single landing page of a website. So, I am dealing with a different kind of a audience base. Coming to the element of scheduling. Now, what usually happens in case of traditional media planning, there are specific insertion dates. There are specific time periods when you insert your advertisement or your communication in form of insertions in the program. Now, like in case of broadcasting, you choose a particular day when my advertisement or when my communication is going to come into or will be inserted into a program. When it comes to digital media, companies can even go to the extent of very accurately identifying the exact decision making which is going to make your overall media scheduling exercise very much targeted, and not only targeted, it also happens real time. Media budget. Now, students, earlier firms were required to only think of allocating or apportioning a part of their revenues to some of the channels through defined platforms. With the digital channels, now marketers need to think and they have to invest keeping in mind multiple factors like my marketing research, what is the customer profile development, what are various kind of testing strategies, the cost of tracking down, the cost of evaluating, monitoring, purchasing analytical products. So, there are various aspects which one has to take into account, and my budget is to be decided accordingly. The last component which has to do with delivery. So, what is media delivery and how the shift has taken place with respect to delivery? Finally, there are certain concepts like reach, frequency, display or impressions which have different connotations, they have different meanings and different kind of strategies in the online world. So, how the reach and the frequency used to take place and how it is delivered and how you reach out to the consumers, and the frequency with which you reach out to the consumers was very different in the traditional media platform. But now with the online media scape, we are looking at these terminologies and we are looking at these concepts from a different viewpoint. All in all, how can we understand the differences in the media planning offline and online? So, when we compare, we largely find on the basis of the discussion that we have just had, we find that in case of online media planning, you place the ad in the right channel and in the right carrier, that is the vehicle, for your greater visibility. But when you do it in case of offline, you are more interested in looking at the creative. You are more interested, you invest a lot in the copy part of it, in making that particular concept different and in handling that particular concept in a creative manner. Second, when you talk about offline media planning, we find that messages, that is the communication part, that is more message driven, or the entire promotion is more message driven. You focus on what you have to say, what needs to be communicated. But in case of online mediums, it is more context driven. In which particular situation and context am I going to say whatever I decide to talk about? In case of offline media planning, my strength, my strong point is how many people are repetitively viewing my message, my communication. How effectively I am able to reach out to people and connect with the people. The strongest metric is how many times people are, viewing my communication. But in case of online, it is majorly the story. It is the strength of the story which is going to make you viral. In case of offline, you push the content onto the consumer. It is often an interrupted model, that you use to communicate. But in case of online, it is not an interruption, but it is the consumer who willingly create and also share the content, what we call as the user generated content. They not only share their experiences, but also write and post and comment a lot, and therefore this is something which is happening, and therefore the participation of the consumer is more in case of online mediums. Now, when you talk about the impact, how this shift, the shift that we have seen in terms of channels and delivery, scheduling, or vehicles, how this shift has actually led to certain kind of influence in terms of how well you are able to use these channels to communicate with your target group. We see that there has been a shift from what we can understand as outbound to inbound. Now, students, a growing number of ads are never seen by their target audience, and I am sure you all would agree with this. We do not see some of the ads because we are in a state of control. I can do a lot of zipping, zapping, moving, shifting. So consumers' response to traditional ways of communicating is changing from one time per chance, like out of chance I'm just going to click it and I'm going to see it only once, to something which is more inclusive. So advertisement now, they tell a unique story, and they are not just to sell. You communicate because there is a story, there is a theme, there is something to which your audience feel interested in, and therefore the ads are also seen because they tell a story of their own and they are more context driven. Second, we find that there has been a price shift, like from premium to more targeted. Earlier, the communication on any sort of traditional media, largely advertisements on the traditional media, they used to be premiumly priced, as there were only a few channels that were available to air them. But with digital mediums, your choice base have expanded, and the advent of certain automated tools of buying, marketers now have an option to differentiate their inventory through various kind of prices that they can shift, and they can make use of various other digital platforms in order to connect with the audience by shifting the price across the channels. We also find that there has been an impact in terms of just human base to something which is now programmed. Now, how the new channels, the digital channels, they are more programmatic in nature. where we are basically implementing an automated set of rules. So, when you use the digital medium, sometimes there is an algorithm which is running at the back end, something there is some automated tools, some search engine optimization, something of that sort you are doing in order to efficiently target a firm's base of consumers. So, at times you also are able to program your marketing and come up with the ads and the communications which are highly personalized in nature. And this is what has largely changed from traditional to digital, that you are moving away from one standardized ad or communication to something which is more personalized. Then again, what has changed is you now have fragmentation across, not only in terms of your customer base but also in terms of your channels. You find that there are loyalists in case of traditional mediums, loyalists to certain channels, loyalists to certain brands, but here you largely find the consumers to be pretty disengaged. And I also addressed this when we discussed about what are the characteristics of an online consumer, and we find that the consumer in the online platform is also disengaged and distracted. So, media is becoming more or less fragmented, with most of the consumer assuming a greater control of how, when and where they would be consuming the content. And this trend is actually forcing the companies to seek out newer strategies and adapt themselves to the new digital landscape. Finally, we can understand that because of this shift, one has to really work on the analytics. So, the firms nowadays, as we were looking at the more algorithm based, more program based marketing activities, the advertisers or the communicators also need to manage the inputs and manage the feedback that they receive, not only across the traditional channels but also they have to deal with lot of big data that is available across multiple channels, so that they are able to understand and evaluate the impact, be it the some sort of analysis, what we call as marketing analytical tools that you apply to analyze the data. So, how many likes, how many comments, shares, reposts, you analyze all that data and you make use of analytical techniques in order to track the success of your channels. Media companies, therefore, one can say, students, that they need to move on, not only from just doing some channel analytics, but also to analyze in terms of analyzing the big data that is available, so that they can use it to increase their value and remain competitive. Having understood the shift and the impact that this shift has brought to the digital medium channels or channels, now let us look at what are the key concepts in a media plan. What are the key elements that we normally look into? So, when it comes to the key concepts, one has to look into reach. How many people I am going to reach out to? Cost, time when I will be reaching out to them, and it also has an element of continuity embedded in it. Response that I am looking at, relevance, whether I am staying relevant, and the frequency of connect. Now, if we look at these, what is reach? The total number of audience that are exposed, whom you see, whom you give an opportunity to see. So, they are the ones who are exposed to the medium during the planning period, during the planned media period at least once. Please remember, reach does not take into account the total audience who actually see the promotion, but it only gives you an indication of the universe of people who can be reached out, who would be exposed, whether or not they are the member of your target group. So, all those people who can be reached out with the media among the client's target audience segment, right. So, it gives you the entire universe of people. Coming to the impact, what is actually the relevance that we are looking into? We are looking at the relevance or the context of a particular promotion in relation to the media vehicles that we have chosen for that purpose. When it comes to frequency, how many times you want to repeat that exposure? So, frequency is nothing but the number of times a particular promotion is exposed to a person during the media plan. There can be multiple exposures across the same medium, or there can be a single exposure on multiple mediums for the same individual. Obviously, my reach, my frequency is largely going to decide my cost that it will take to communicate my message across different channels. It is, in terms of digital medium, one can use various cost parameters like cost per click or cost per thousand, and this is something that we will look in the subsequent slides. Response. What is the response or the reaction that you are looking at? Now, your actual audience, how many of them, your target audience based, how many of them actually read or viewed or made a visit to your website or performed any sort of an action like, say for example, generating the inquiries or leads which is related to your promotions or which is related to your overall marketing communication strategy. Now, one has to look at whether the response is being garnered, is being generated by my member of the target audience or not, otherwise it would obviously become a wasteful exercise. And then how to time it, that is my scheduling decisions. The firm has to take a set of decisions with respect to when and for how long it would want its the channel to keep on exposing its audience with the communication message. So, the decisions which are taken by the firm for its specific set of products to determine the period for which the communication will run and the way they would be scheduled over a period of time to generate maximum impact. Having looked at the prominent elements of a media plan, let us see how these elements change in relation to a digital media plan. So, we have just talked about reach, frequency, scheduling, cost, relevance. So, what am I going to generate out of it, churn out of it? I am going to look at in my digital plan, I am going to look at the web visits, page visits, page views, right, unique visitors, impressions, clicks, cost per thousand which is CPM and cost per click which is CPC. Now students, what is a web visit and how this web visit is aligned with the key concept of the media plan? A visit is a visitor's session on all websites of the firm within a particular period of time. So, this is just like reach, right. So, during the session, the user might view multiple pages, but the overall session is counted as one, right. So, that the user may be, like in case of traditional channel, the user may be exposed to the same message across different multiple platforms, but you are reaching to one individual. What is a page visit? Again, the number of people who visit a particular page of a firm's website. This can be the home page of that firm, or a landing page that has been specifically created to channel predefined consumer actions. That's something that we have already talked about in the consumer funnel. So, again it can be a web visit or a page visit. Page views, total number of pages that are viewed by a person, again in a particular session would be the page view for that session. So, for different sessions there you can have different page views. Unique visitors, how many people, individuals visit a website within a stipulated period of time, a specified time frame. Now, these methods you usually use, to track, what is the reason of going for unique visitors? Because you want to track how many different visitors are landing on your pages, right? And the various methods that you would be using also in relation to tracking the IP addresses that are unique. So, with this, students, we will close the session and will come back with more content related to the digital channel mix.